Hi guys, it's me. This video is a little bit different today. I hope you can hear me. I have some work going on outside and it's intermittent. They're cutting stones because I'm having my driveway repaved. So hopefully it's not interfering too much because I need to record this today. And I don't know how long they're going to be. Anyway, before any of you ask, yes, I am going to make a video with my thoughts on the last two episodes from season 6 of Scandal. And yes, I'm also going to do a video this year, I think, short, instead of writing something about the season 7 poster. I guess that is the poster that came out with Olivia sitting in the dark with the Michael Jackson light shining down on her. I don't know. So if that is the poster indeed, then sure, I'm going to give some thoughts on it. But this video is not any of those things. This video is a little bit different. It's really personal, and I'm just feeling moved to talk about and share some things from my present and my past, and also some anxieties that I'm presently going through, because sometimes I feel like YouTubers or just people who become successful, they do these videos once they feel that they're in a place of success, and that then they can open up and share the times where they were confused or failing or flailing and didn't know what to do. And those times are really periodic for me. And I feel like there's never going to be a mountaintop for me to, sort of gaze down on others from on high. I'm not interested in that. In fact, that's the theme of what I want to talk about today. I wrote it down. I don't want to be a bad bitch. I don't want to be twice as good, and certainly not for half as much. And I don't want to define myself as the best of anything. And that may sound really weird, especially coming from a Black woman, especially because we're taught those things, right? The bad bitch is just the latest iteration of this idea of living for other people, or living a life that can externally be read as successful, a life that is hashtag goals or enviable. And like, I don't think that anybody looks at me or my life in that way, but sometimes you'd be surprised. Nor am I aiming for that. And yeah, there have been people who have achieved things in the past that have inspired me, and times where I felt low-key jealous. And I always know that I'm jealous of something because I'm not doing my best, or I'm not where I want to be, and so I envy that other person's success, right? That's real talk. Anyway, so first I want to go through a list of things I'm presently anxious about, and also some lessons that I have learned that happen to coincide with things that have happened on Scandal. So it will be a hashtag ICMABAS going throughout this whole piece. And for those of you watching who don't know, ICMABAS means I can make anything be about Scandal. And I really can. Maybe I'm the best at that. I don't know. Anyway, so right now the fall is coming up. I'm really anxious about going back to school, especially since I'm going to be entering my last year as a PhD student. And like, I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm scared as shit. See, this is why I didn't put any makeup on or like mascaras. I didn't even do my eyebrows because I knew there were going to be tears. Anyway, like, I visualize sometimes, and it's not something I sit down and do purposefully, but there are times that I get these visions of what my life is going to be like, and it must be something that's manifesting from a deep want or desire inside me that keeps manifesting over and over again in these photographs in my mind. And I see myself in this kitchen, and it's a pretty big kitchen. It's light, it's airy, and there's this big kind of not picture window, but more landscape size, and there's nice sizable grounds outside, and my dogs are running out there, and I'm looking out at them, and it's making me so happy and filling me with so much joy. And I know that that sounds really simple, or, we're taught that that's a really basic kind of life to aspire to. I've just never been one of these people that saw my life in terms of positions or careers or wins, second ICMABAS, that I collect. Those things have never pleased me. Um, and I've always felt like really weird about that. Now, of course, the vision that I keep having, it doesn't mean that I don't have a lot of things going on, right? Who knows? Maybe that's like, maybe someday I have enough money to buy a second property, and it's a cabin that we go away to further up in a more rural area. I don't know what it means. It doesn't mean that I'm a housewife. I don't think so. I don't know. Um, but it's significant to me, and it is something that I want to have. So, um, anyway, so I'm anxious about going back to school. I visualize that I am getting my PhD, I'm getting that degree. I see myself being Dr. Whoever. I see myself at some university, I don't know where. I see myself teaching, right? I see all of those things. But between now and when that happens, I am so frightened about putting together this package. And yet, realistically, part of me, package, a dissertation, and facing, um, my future colleagues who are going to have to rate me and approve me, and say, yes, you passed, or no, you didn't. You have a lot more work to do, right? At the end of 2018, my funding's going to run out, and I really feel like I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And I have a hard time mentally sometimes with this work. I have a hard time paying attention sometimes. There are periods where I just feel like I am empty. I don't know anything. And to be frank, times where I just feel stupid. I'm going through that right now in terms of like my scandal work. I took a break, just let my mind go. I stopped watching, repeats. I started to feel really self-conscious about what I was putting on the blog. I've had some really bad experiences in the past, particularly some things that happened to me in 2015, somewhat late 2014. And I just felt like this is too much. Maybe something is wrong with me. I now see that it isn't. And it was people who were acting like they had all the answers and who were too woke, for their own good or their own age. Um, and, I just took a step back. And I like to do things when I really feel moved to do them. So my blog, school, my business. For those of you who don't know, I started a natural hair and skincare brand called Born Beautiful Naturals. That's the little flyer that you see there. You can see there's a discount code in the description box if you want to shop. And go to Facebook and check out our reviews. I think you'll be really pleased. So I had to plug. But yeah, I started selling to people like 8.5 months ago. And sometimes I don't give myself enough credit for how far I've come, because all I can think about is how far I have to go. And that's true about the previous things that I've just mentioned, right? School, my blog. Sometimes I feel like you've done all of this work and all of this writing, and at the end of the day, what does this mean? Anything? Um, my family back home meaning both Jamaica and the DC area, they're not financially secure, most of my family, and I'm not in a place where I can be the answer to all of that. My grandmother, who has loved me and been such a huge inspiration in my life, like, I don't know a better woman. And believe me, my wife knows that. I say that. She's the best woman I know, my grandmother. And I feel really inadequate because I'm also not in a position to completely take care of her now that she has to give up her house. She doesn't want to move here, which would have been the best thing for me, but I can't force her to do that because I want her to be happy and she wants to remain around most of the family. And so all of those things, I'm just going to take this off. All of those things I am struggling with right now, but I want to say that I've also have the faith to know that I have come out of situations like this in the past, or perhaps worse than this, and I've gotten through them and I've learned a lot. And I thought, both where I am right now, where I want to go, and where I've been, I want to just talk about some of those things. Perhaps they'll even help me to feel better. Um, so, in addition to what I said at the beginning about I don't want to be a bad bitch, I don't want to be twice as good, and I don't want to define myself as the best at anything, because the amount of pressure that comes with that, what is the reward? Perhaps money, perhaps fame, perhaps, all of those things. But I don't find any of those things satisfying. And I had to come to a place where I acknowledge that for myself. Because in the past, I really did think that I had to chase all of those things. I used to, and if I look down, I'm looking at the notes that I jotted down. I used to live for what other people thought I should be. I fully intended to go into law, to be an attorney. And my wife still tells me, you really should have been an attorney. And I remember I had an internship at the Business and Legal Affairs Department at National Geographic Television, right before I went to into university. And I remember interviewing in my spare time a lot of the attorneys that were there, and they had all come from like corporate law firms where this Business and Legal Affairs was their step back. And they all talked about, and they were all white. And at the time, I was not woke. So in my mind, it was, my dreams and what I wanted or what I imagined I could be. That's all there was. I wasn't thinking about, racial barriers, gender barriers, barriers to my sexuality or any sexuality, right? I was a virgin who couldn't drive. I literally mean this, like I couldn't drive at that age when I had this internship and I was 18 and I was a virgin. And yeah, so that's all there was. And I remember a lot of them telling me, take a break between university and when you go to law school and try to figure things out. And we might now identify that as very white because, not everybody can afford to take a break because those bills don't stop and you got to keep going. And I know this well because I had to squeeze 3 years of grad school to get my MA into 2 because I had a language component and you had to have 3 years of that language in order to get your MA. And I squeezed it in a summer because I could not afford to stay a 3rd year because I'd have to completely pay for that and take out even more loans. And I just really couldn't. Anyway, yeah, so the other thing is that, my family thought I should do that. I think they really thought I was going to be the promise for them. I am the first person to go and complete, university in my family. And my little cousin, Deja, she's the second. We're 20 years apart. And she literally just entered university. Shout out to Norfolk State, where she is. And I'm really, really proud of her. Anyway, I also thought for a while that I needed to live for what I was good at and not necessarily what I wanted. So again, with the, being an attorney, And that stopped as soon as I got to Vassar, and I took an anthropology course, and I didn't even know what that was before I took it. And I did, and I thought, oh my God, this is the thing that I'm interested in. And I am really thankful that I did not have the kind of family who made me feel like you can't study that because what the fuck are you gonna do? How are you gonna make money? Mind you, it's not like people didn't say this to me and I didn't know. And yeah, I continued to listen to um, some white voices that made me feel better. One of whom was the head of the anthropology department who loved me. And partly because I was the best student in that department, no shade. And I got honors in it. The only black student, mind you. The only black major in that department. And I was, you know, the best student. And I don't define myself as the best at anything, but empirically, that's what it was. Anyway, like she used to tell me, don't worry about how you're going to make money. You're going to figure that out. If this is what you want to do, this is what you want to major in, then that's what you should do. And so I went with my instincts, and that's what I did. I wasn't following her recommendation, but she could tell that that's what I wanted to do. And even up until I was working at the U.S. Holocaust Museum in D.C. in education, and I am so thankful that I had a black mentor. She's now the head of education there, and she has really been amazing for me. But also, she, I think, was one of the people who kind of pushed me to further the things that I was good at. You know what I mean? She saw that I was good at facilitating, great at speaking, you know, great at coming up with programs and organizing things. And I think because she had a known bias, and she would completely cop to this, she had a known bias against and towards against black women who acted, or black girls who acted like babies or acted too unsure or wishy-washy. She liked black girls slash black women who were together, who took control of things, who you know, seemed like they had it figured out. And I think part of me tried to be that because she liked me. She gave me really good advice in other ways, especially when I was having trouble with my mother at the time, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And she was smart, and she supported the handful of us black, you know, young black people who worked there at the museum, and was very protective of us. But at the same time, she would coddle the black men and the black boys, my ex-fiance included. I mean, he practically, no, let me hold back and not say that. That's a private joke. You know, she had a lot more sympathy towards black boys and black men, and partly because of the way society treated them. And I think this was reflected even in her own family, her sons and stepsons, and the daughter that she had, that the daughters had to be more together, they had to figure it out. And the boys just had a bit more leeway with her. And because I didn't grow up in a household where that was practiced, I just like, I never felt like that should be the case. But nevertheless, I do think for a while, because I was good at certain things when I was at that museum, and some of it I really enjoyed. I'm not meaning to say that I wasn't. And it's that, you know, it's been really useful to me in my career now, like, you know, teaching students at university. I use some of the facilitator skills that I had then. It's what makes me, I think, and my students have told me, a better teacher in communicating to students. But I took a job in another department, and I was so unhappy there. But because people thought I was good for the place. I was good there, so you should stay here. Um, I just, I wasn't happy, and I did something stupid, and I quit before I had another job, and I told people months in advance when I was going to be leaving, and I didn't have another job. And looking back now, it's just a stupid thing that I did, but I still can't regret it. um, I don't know. To me, sometimes when, like, I've read Shonda's book, The Year of Yes, and there's some things in there I think she really hits the nail on. And there are things in there that I don't identify with. And I'm not saying that these things aren't true for somebody, because I know women for whom it is true. I am saying that as a woman, as a Black woman, that this thing is not true for me. For me, I think the actual fantasy is that you would have this woman who is so completely in love with her work and satisfied, and everything else, like, um, outside of that, pales in comparison. Like, Shonda writes so lovingly about writing, and that when she's doing that, she's at her best. She's on a high. And I think that's amazing. I know what that high is like when you're writing. You're really getting into something. That's another area where I'm having tremendous amount of blockage and insecurities right now, both from a fiction level, from a blogger level, and from a dissertation level. Even somebody who is in the midst of writing 3 different articles, because I know I got to start interviewing next year for teaching jobs, and you're going to be expected to, like, have something to show that you're worthy. But yeah, like Christina Yang, that, oh, the chocolate factory was the hospital. I'm like, I guess. um, and like, but then you look at somebody like Olivia Pope, and her life just seems real fucking empty to me without all of the wins that she collects or the positions she can inhabit. She's all external, and she is really kind of emotionally bankrupt and hollow, because this part in here is much harder. But I think I recognized for myself a while ago that I'm really sensitive, and I have, maybe it is the introvert in me, paid more attention to this, the interior, and developing that sense of self. I'd always been more interested in that when I was younger. And kind of getting that together and letting that guide me on what I wanted to do. I've never defined myself by the job that I did. I never led with what I did, particularly when I worked at the Holocaust Museum, because people would just, the conversation would just go towards, oh my God, isn't it so depressing, like, to work there? No, bitch, it's not, because I don't work in the exhibition where I'm surrounded by those images all the time. People have all kinds of jobs there. But yeah, like, I just don't define myself by what it is that I do. And in some ways, I feel like that's a really American thing. I never found that to be the most interesting thing about me. And maybe it's my distaste for chit chat as an introvert. I like to talk about things and ideas and, what's going on, things that are meaningful. Anyway, so like I said, the fantasy for me is the women, or the women who live for their work. Because to me, what that is really doing is trying to co-opt a male trope. Because maleness really depends on the public, the exterior. To be male meant that you had a right to public space, right? We could take this all the way back, honey, to Enlightenment ideas about progress. Take this all the way back to European gender roles and how white supremacy, sort of like develops out of that, to Durkheim, women's role within the private realm and men's role within the public realm. So this idea that a woman who lives for the public realm and that feminism is supposed to be equivalent to women who are reaching for that ultimate goal and only feel satisfied when they're at the top, to me, is that you're just trying to embody male modes of power while being in a body that is not male at all, right? I don't want to be a man. I don't want to be male. I don't want to co-opt. I don't want to lust after male power because I'm never going to be male and those things are never going to work for me. And that's another ICMABAS, because I think about Olivia a lot with that, as one of my friends, Yvonne, says a lot that Olivia is really externally focused. And to me, it just reminds me of men a lot and how we teach men and males what success is, right? The things that kind of represent you. You got the bad bitch at home. You got the car that looks fly. You got a house that is great. You got beautiful kids, if you even aspire to that. You've got the job, the suit. You've got the look, right? So that means that you're successful. And I don't care about those things. I just don't. Um, so all of that, thinking about the fantasy of what a woman is supposed to want, and especially Black women. I don't want to covet, white feminist ways of, being considered a woman, or hetero patriarchal ways of being considered a woman. Like, I want to live my Black and queer ways of thinking about what is possible for me and being guided by my curiosities, my wants, my desires, while also being grounded in the reality that I live in. So really think about who is defining success for you. When I think about the pressure to be all things, or to be the best, or to have a certain career by a certain point, or collected a number of achievements by a certain point. I used to, when I moved to this country and things got bad for me after a while, after giving up so much and moving here, that I used to think about my former colleagues, people that I used to go to school with, and I think, man, look at these things that they're doing. And yeah, Facebook is a part of that. And is all of the best things that I have done behind me? Did I achieve everything I wanted to do by the age of 28? Did I leave my mark? Was that it? And I'm destined for mediocrity, which is also a problematic term, for the rest of my days. And it used to make me cry a lot and have a lot of anxiety. I used to imagine these people and conversations that never took place, but that they'd be saying things to me like, oh, really? This is what you're doing now? Or, oh, that's cute. Yeah, I guess, that's nice too. And those kind of patronizing things. And I felt so much pressure. And I traced back where this pressure came from. And I realized that it probably started when I was 12. A really impactful age for me. Just like it was for Olivia. At the age of 12, my mother went to prison, just like Olivia's did, although she didn't know that. Basically, my mother left me for a significant portion of my life, for that entire part of my adolescence until I was 19, and even after that. But before she went into prison, while she was on, what do you call it, parole, I guess, between her sentencing and when she actually had to report for prison, I had an award ceremony at my junior high school. I was in the 7th grade, and I wanted her to come. I thought she'd be really proud of me. And she showed up, and I was getting an award for Odyssey of the Mind. I don't know if anybody was in a club like that. But Odyssey of the Mind was this physics slash mathematics club where we did all kinds of experiments. And it's so weird because, by the time I was in like the Math Honor Society after that point, but by the time I got to trigonometry in 11th grade, I was like, I'm tapping out. I'm done. I'm about to cultivate English and history as the things that that I'm gonna be great at. Anyway, and social studies. But I traced it back to that time because she said this thing to me. The honor roll people were getting their award and they were doing the roll call for that, and my mother said, I wish I was one of those mothers who was clapping for the honor roll kids. I wish that I was the mother of one of those honor roll kids. And that stuck with me. And in my head, it was, oh, this Odyssey of the Mind thing that I really enjoy, that's not enough. There's a level of achievement that I'm supposed to reach, and I'm not at that level. Another ICMABAS, right? And I thought, I have to get to that level. Listen, after my mother was, in prison, which I literally dropped her off at Camp Cupcake with her boyfriend, who was then murdered like a few months after that. After that point, because that was the end of 7th grade, by the time I got to 8th grade, I was on it. I chose my friends based on, where they were going and what they were doing. I remember becoming friends with these twin girls. We ended up going to the same high-performing high school together. Shout out to Banneker. And I got my grades up. I got on the honor roll. I was able to get into a great high school, which eventually led me to be able to get a partial scholarship to Vassar and serve me really well. So in some ways, I do have my mother to thank for putting that spark in me. But at the same time, that's where a lot of my anxiety developed, and this idea of I have to be the best, I have to be better, I have to keep proving myself. I'm only as good as my last, I'm only as good as the last honor roll advisory. I'm only as good as this last paper that I got, a good grade on. And I had a lot of, ups and downs. And what is really strange to me is that 7 years later, when I was 19, and I pretty much had a breakdown my sophomore year, at Vassar. And I remember that same mother saying to me, and this was shortly before she was being released from prison and then, having to go back to Jamaica. I remember, her calling me and me talking about the pressure and everything that I was going through, the pressure of school, that my grades had gone down a bit, like that first term, that my grandfather, so this was the second term, spring term, I had a breakdown. My grandfather had died. My aunt, who's actually a bit younger than me, she got pregnant almost at the same age as a teenager that my mother got pregnant with me. And it just felt like so many things were going out of my control. I finally went into therapy for the first time. But before I did that, the same mother who told me she wished that she was a mother of one of these honor roll kids, telling her about all this pressure and anxiety and stress that I was having, said, well, you could just come home. I wanted to fucking throw something because I thought, I can't just come home at this point. Do you know what is on the line here? I wanted to go abroad the next year to India. I had to have a certain, GPA to be able to do that. I was under a tremendous amount of stress and pressure from having let my grades slip that one semester. I just found it ironic, and it just proves people say things to you and they have no idea how they affected you. And I did not understand the effect that her words at age 12 had on me until I was an adult. Decided I was going to go to grad school, and I had to move to the Midwest where I knew no one at all, and by myself. And I had gotten engaged right before moving out there. And it was a really, really hard time. My second year, I twisted my neck and I got shingles, which was supposed to be an old person's disease from the stress that I was going under because the chicken pox, it lies dormant in your body. So the chicken pox, herpes, and shingles, they're all related. They're not the same. They have different strands, I think, but they're all related. So when the chicken pox, like when the symptoms go away, it doesn't exit your body because it's a virus. It lays dormant somewhere, and so sometimes stress can activate it, and it'll present itself as shingles. And it came out on my back. I then got tremendous amount of allergy issues. Sometimes my face would swell up, breaking out in lumps, and stress makes all of this worse. And again, I was putting myself under pressure to complete 3 years of material in 2 years because I needed to go home. I needed to move on. But one of the things I did learn about putting myself under so much stress was that my intuition led me to good things. And my intuition towards the end of that degree, when I was about to graduate, told me that I shouldn't accept this this fellowship to the University of Chicago anthropology department for my PhD, that I should go home. I went home. My intuition told me I needed to end my engagement and break up with my fiance. And I did, and I felt a tremendous burden lift off of me. And I had no clue what I was going to do or where I was going. And anyway, the Holocaust Museum wanted me back in a different position, and I went back. Fast forward to moving to this country. I gotta tell y'all something. I went from a job that I absolutely loved and loved me, a job I swore, I think it may have been like a couple of weeks before this immigration business with my wife happened, that I thought, literally, I said out loud, I'm going to stay in this job until they don't want me, or I find another position within the Smithsonian units, that a family that I wanted. I thought, this is the place for me, where I want to be. It's perfect. And then a couple weeks later, you know, my wife, and I don't want to get into this, that could be a separate video, it's really complicated, where my wife was essentially told she couldn't visit anymore, that she had to go get a 10-month, get a visa to be able to come in frequently. And then she was rejected for that. And when she went to London embassy, and I got the call, I was not expecting that. And the solution was either have a long distance marriage, maybe break up, or move to England where we could be together. And my intuition again told me, like, there was no question. I was going to keep hold of the thing, the person who made me feel emotionally anchored and safe, because I had not been able to find that in my life in adulthood. Clearly, I had my grandmother when I was younger, that made me feel that way, because my mother was never able to fulfill that role for me because she was a child when she had me. And becoming um, a woman who I not only love but am tolerant of my weaknesses, my foibles, my uncertainties. I now see my mother in that same light and wonder, wow, how much of your life was, um, you know, cut short from having me. Especially since my grandmother basically told her she was not allowed to dash with the belly, as we say in Jamaica, that she had to have me. And I think eventually my mother like really came around to that and really took care of herself and wanted to have me, but she definitely considered it at first. I mean, she had to get kicked out of school in those days in Jamaica because she was pregnant. So it was actually in prison that she got her her high school diploma. So she gave up a lot to have me, and I wanted to have grace for her as I got older, which is how we've been able to repair our relationship. And she's learned a lot too and grown and matured. And I'm really proud of us. um, but shit, I don't even know where I was. I'm just kind of talking and getting things off my mind, and I should probably shut up soon. So, yeah, okay, so I wanted to say, when I moved over here, I had a consulting job with the Smithsonian for 6 months, like when I first moved here, and they were really, really great to me during the transition period of 10 months, allowed me to travel every single month for about 10 days as work from home. While I went through this, they were extremely tolerant, and I shout out to them. I will always have a lot of respect for that institution. But I went from having this great consultancy and having had this great job and a great condo that I lived in, and this great life in DC with friends, and I threw dinner parties and all of those things, right? I went from that to a couple years later finding it so difficult with where we live to finding a job in my area, and them not wanting to hire a foreigner who didn't really know the local cultures and people and organizations, because that's a big part of the kind of community development or community partnerships thing that you do, right? And I was a manager for that shit at one point in my life. That if you don't have those connections, it's really hard to get into those jobs when you change location. So I went from all of what I consider greatness to working in retail, right? In makeup at fucking Selfridges and John Lewis and House of Fraser. But you know what? I learned things from that, and I learned from those experiences, even though they would assault my confidence every single day, and the way people would speak to me, the number of times I wanted to be like, bitch, do you know who I am and where I have been and what I have done, and that I have 2 degrees and you're talking to me like this? But I didn't say those things, right? Because who cared about that at the time? I had a job that I was doing. It didn't matter what I'd done before or who I thought I was. I had a role that I was playing. But withstanding those couple of years where I was underemployed and not living to the best of my capabilities, I can't tell you how painful they were. I remember walking to work and putting on, okay guys, you're gonna think I'm a geek here, putting on Katy Perry's Firework, and I'd be singing it and I'd be bawling. I'd cry, and I walk to work thinking, I am better than this. And saying I'm better than this, that is not a slight to people who work in retail at all. It's about people who know that there's something else that they should be doing and they can't do it for whatever reason, right? So that's everybody who's come from a foreign country who has a degree, but you're cleaning tables or you're cleaning houses. And that's the life of a lot of people who emigrate to this country, the life of a lot of people who have emigrated to America, right? I've done this immigrant thing twice now, right? From Jamaica to the United States, from the United States here to to Britain. And this shit is hard. So um, you're seeing people doing jobs that you think are lowly or that you don't value. You never know where those people are coming from or what they know or how smart they are or what they have inside them. So I always treat people in customer service like with respect, particularly servers, because I have been there. um, but things got a lot better about 3 years ago. It started getting better. So sticking in there, having someone who can encourage you and has patience and stick by you, um, even though it'll test your relationship as well, because God knows it has. And we've had our ups and downs, because when you're not feeling good about who you are and where you are in life, it can affect your relationship, right? I said this on Twitter the other day about when you don't know what you want, or when you're lying about it, don't know where you're going, and the other person in the relationship does know, or they're content with where they are or where or who they are, it just exposes you. You just feel really angry because you want to have that certainty. You don't want to feel this way. And I think about Olivia, to return to an ICMABAS, I think about Olivia in 509 that way. And that, yeah, she may have thought that she hadn't achieved everything that she was supposed to achieve, that she had to be driven in all of these ways that she'd been taught to be driven and to achieve certain things and to be on the mountaintop and look down on high. And I'm almost 40, and I used to talk to women when I was younger. I've always been attracted to older women, not physically attracted or sexually attracted. I would gravitate towards them because I knew that there was something that I wanted to learn from them. So when I used to go to church, this was the case. I just always had women who were older than me who would impart life lessons. And one of the consistent things that they would talk about was about learning to accept themselves, or when they got older, or when they turned 40 or 50, how they just stopped giving a shit about certain things. And I see that I'm starting to approach that age where I don't really care so much what people think about me or where I should be or what I should be doing. I'm getting less concerned about the woker than thou. And that shit even applies to academia, because I reached a place where I realized, yo, all of y'all are theorizing and you have these competing theories about how the world works, and there are a lot of them. Y'all can't all be right. You know what I mean? And I don't think the solution is in any one thing. So what I'm going to have to do is push forward the best way that I know how, and commit to the thing that I believe in, and just keep swimming, because that instinct has, it stood me in good stead so far. And that applies to my business, that applies to my blog, all of those things. And I'm saying that to you now going forward. And it doesn't mean there aren't going to be times where I get insecure, right? Because there will be. Right now, going through my head is whether or not I will post this. I guess you'll know once you get to this point, because I'm feeling a little bit insecure about it. But anyway, yeah, I think those are all the things that I have written down and that I wanted to talk about and share. And guys, I have to say that just saying those things and allowing myself to get emotional and to cry has actually made me feel better. I'm not as tightly wound, um, you know, as I as I was when I started this video. I may even go out for a run after this because I'm really uncomfortable in my body right now. I need to lose some weight, as you can see. But I'm going to get there. I'm going to get my mind right. So any case, I hope that some of this has been helpful. I hope it was not boring. Anybody out there who is going through these struggles, whether you're my age or you're younger, like, I don't think there's going to be a magical age where you just kind of all of a sudden have it together. The life is a journey. The moment you're alive to the moment you die, and there's no mountaintops. There are hills and valleys. So thank you for listening. I'll be back with more focused scandal content. And thank you for entertaining me. All right, thanks.